For decades, Microsoft Windows has been the backbone of personal computing. From offices to classrooms, from gaming rigs to corporate servers, Windows has dominated the digital world. But as we step deeper into 2026, something unusual is happening. Beneath the surface of Microsoft's long-standing success, warning signs are beginning to appear. Analysts, tech enthusiasts, and even longtime Windows users are starting to ask an uncomfortable question. Could 2026 become one of the worst years in Windows history? To understand why this concern is growing, we need to look at several converging problems. These include the controversial direction of Windows development, increasing competition from alternative operating systems, the growing influence of artificial intelligence platforms, and a shift in how people actually use computers today. All of these forces together are creating what some experts describe as a perfect storm for Microsoft's flagship operating system. One of the biggest challenges Windows faces in 2026 is user trust. Over the past few years, many Windows users have grown increasingly frustrated with the direction Microsoft has taken with its operating system. Frequent updates that sometimes break features, aggressive advertising within the interface, and the constant push toward Microsoft accounts and cloud integration have created tension between Microsoft and its users. What was once seen as a flexible and user-controlled platform now often feels more restrictive and corporate. Many users remember when Windows was primarily about performance, compatibility, and user freedom. Today, however, some critics argue that Microsoft is prioritizing services, subscriptions, and data collection over user experience. Features like built-in ads in the start menu, recommended apps, and forced integrations with services like OneDrive or Microsoft Edge have sparked backlash. While these may seem like small changes individually, together they create a growing sense among users that Windows is no longer fully theirs to control. Another major pressure point comes from the hardware side of the industry. Windows has always thrived because it could run on almost any PC. But the rise of new processor architectures is changing the landscape. Apple's move to its own ARM-based Apple Silicon chips has demonstrated that tightly integrated hardware and software can deliver remarkable performance and efficiency. MacBooks now offer incredible battery life and speed, challenging Windows laptops in ways that were once unthinkable. Meanwhile, the Windows ecosystem is still trying to fully adapt to ARM architecture. Although Microsoft has made progress with Windows on ARM, compatibility issues with traditional applications continue to hold it back. Developers have been slow to fully optimize their software, and users sometimes encounter frustrating limitations. If this gap continues through 2026, Windows could lose more ground in premium computing markets where performance and battery life matter most. At the same time, another competitor is quietly gaining strength: Linux. For many years, Linux was seen as a niche operating system used mainly by developers and enthusiasts. But the situation is changing. With improvements in user-friendly distributions like Ubuntu, Fedora, and Linux Mint, More everyday users are discovering that Linux can now provide a stable, fast, and customizable alternative to Windows. Gaming was once the biggest barrier preventing users from switching away from Windows, but even that advantage is slowly eroding, thanks to technologies like Valve's Proton compatibility layer and the success of the Steam Deck. Thousands of Windows games can now run on Linux with little effort. While Windows still dominates PC gaming, the gap is no longer as wide as it once was. If Linux continues improving compatibility and ease of use, 2026 could mark a turning point where more users seriously consider leaving Windows behind. However, perhaps the most disruptive force threatening Windows is the rapid rise of cloud computing. The traditional idea of a personal computer operating system is beginning to change. More applications are moving to the web, meaning they run inside browsers rather than being installed locally. Tools like Google Docs, Figma, Canva, and countless cloud-based productivity platforms allow people to work from almost any device. When most of your work happens inside a browser, the underlying operating system becomes far less important. A Chromebook, a Mac, a Linux laptop, or even a tablet can all accomplish the same tasks. This trend reduces one of Windows' biggest historical advantages: its massive library of desktop software. If users no longer rely heavily on local applications, the need for Windows itself becomes less critical. Artificial intelligence is adding another layer of complexity to this situation. In recent years, Microsoft has aggressively integrated AI features into Windows, including its Copilot assistant. While Microsoft sees AI as the future of computing, not all users are convinced. Some view these features as unnecessary additions that consume system resources or raise privacy concerns. There is also the question of whether the operating system itself will remain the center of computing in an AI-driven world. Increasingly, AI assistants and cloud services are becoming the primary interfaces people interact with. Instead of navigating traditional operating system menus, users might simply ask an AI to perform tasks. If this shift accelerates, the operating system could fade into the background, becoming less visible and less important. Regulation is another challenge Microsoft must navigate in 2026. Governments around the world are paying closer attention to large technology companies and their influence. Antitrust investigations, digital market regulations, and data privacy laws are tightening. Microsoft has already faced scrutiny over practices like bundling certain applications with Windows, such as Edge or Teams. If regulators decide that Microsoft's control over Windows gives it an unfair advantage in promoting its own services, the company could face restrictions or penalties. Even subtle regulatory changes could reshape how Windows is distributed or how Microsoft integrates its ecosystem. This kind of pressure can slow innovation and force companies to rethink long-standing strategies. Security is also an ongoing battle that never truly ends. Windows has historically been the primary target for malware and cyber attacks, simply because it has the largest user base. While Microsoft has significantly improved security over the years with tools like Windows Defender and hardware-based protections, attackers are constantly evolving. As cyber threats become more sophisticated, maintaining the trust of millions of users becomes increasingly difficult. Large-scale vulnerabilities or security incidents in 2026 could quickly damage Windows' reputation. Businesses in particular are extremely sensitive to security risks. If companies start to feel that other platforms offer better protection or stability, they may begin exploring alternatives more seriously. There is also a generational shift happening in the technology world. Younger users today often grow up using smartphones and tablets as their primary computing devices. For many of them, the first operating systems they interact with are iOS or Android rather than Windows. As these users enter universities and workplaces, their expectations about computing are shaped by mobile platforms and cloud apps rather than traditional desktop software. This cultural shift matters more than it might seem. Operating systems gain long-term strength when users feel familiar and comfortable with them. If younger generations do not feel strongly attached to Windows, the platform could gradually lose its cultural dominance over time. Microsoft itself may also be contributing to uncertainty about Windows' future. Over the past decade, the company has increasingly focused on cloud services like Azure, enterprise software, and AI development. These areas generate massive revenue and are central to Microsoft's long-term strategy. In comparison, Windows no longer appears to be the company's primary growth engine. Some analysts argue that Microsoft now treats Windows more as a platform to support other services rather than as the centerpiece of its ecosystem. While this approach makes business sense, it can create the perception that Windows is no longer the company's main priority. If users begin to feel that Windows development is slowing or becoming secondary, confidence in the platform could weaken. Then there is the issue of update fatigue. Modern versions of Windows follow a continuous update model, delivering frequent feature changes and security patches. While this approach helps keep systems secure, it can also create frustration. Updates sometimes introduce bugs, change familiar interfaces, or temporarily disrupt work. Businesses, in particular, struggle with this pace of change. Large organizations rely on stable environments where software behaves predictably. Constant updates can force IT departments to spend significant time testing compatibility and managing deployments. If organizations feel that Windows updates are becoming too disruptive, they may look for systems that offer longer stability cycles. The broader PC market itself is also changing. Global PC shipments have experienced fluctuations in recent years, partly due to economic uncertainty and the post-pandemic slowdown. Many consumers who bought new computers during the remote work boom are now holding on to those devices longer. Slower hardware upgrade cycles mean fewer opportunities for Windows to expand its installed base. Meanwhile, new types of devices are competing for people's attention. Tablets, foldable devices, and even advanced smartphones are capable of handling many everyday tasks. For casual users, a traditional laptop running Windows may no longer feel essential. All of these factors together create a complicated picture for 2026. It does not necessarily mean Windows will collapse or disappear. Microsoft remains one of the most powerful technology companies in the world, with enormous resources and a massive global user base. Windows still runs on billions of devices and remains deeply embedded in business infrastructure. However, the concerns surrounding Windows in 2026 highlight an important moment of transition. The computing landscape is evolving faster than ever before. Artificial intelligence, cloud services, mobile devices, and alternative operating systems are all reshaping how people interact with technology. For Microsoft, the challenge is not simply maintaining Windows, but redefining its role in this new environment. The company must balance innovation with stability, integrate new technologies without alienating loyal users, and compete with platforms that operate under very different models. If Microsoft succeeds, Windows could adapt and remain a central part of personal computing for many years to come. But if the company misreads the direction of the industry or continues making decisions that frustrate users, 2026 could become remembered as a pivotal year when the dominance of Windows truly began to fade. In the end, the future of Windows will depend on whether Microsoft can reconnect with the core strengths that made the platform successful. In the first place, reliability, flexibility, and putting the user first. The coming years will reveal whether the company can navigate this challenging period or whether the warning signs of 2026 will mark the beginning of a deeper crisis for the world's most famous operating system.